Well, did he call it the Webb telescope? Isn't it the Hubble?
Yes.
Was he thinking of Webb
Yes.
Hubble? I don't understand.
Who knows?
On her Fox News show, while discussing President Biden's speech about AI, Laura Ingraham made fun of President Biden for referring to a telescope as the Webb telescope. And her guest had a good laugh about it before her producer told her in her ear that the Webb telescope is very much a thing that exists, and he did not misspeak in that moment. Then she had to make an embarrassing correction. Take a look.
Well, Laura, watching this, I thought this executive could have used some orders from artificial intelligence.
AI is all around us, and AI is helping the National Weather Service predict weather events, helping the Webb telescope manage 500,000 miles of galaxies away, billions of light years away.
Well, did he call it the Webb telescope? Isn't it the Hubble?
Yes.
Was he thinking of Webb Hubble? I don't understand.
Who knows? But look, his performance today, Laura, was so unsteady.
Man.
Even Kamala Harris couldn't keep a straight face like you.
All right, there is a Webb telescope that I didn't know about. Okay, so Biden I stand corrected by Joe Biden.
I'm Rayy Vana, and welcome back to Rebel HQ. There very much is a Webb telescope. It's called the James Webb Space Telescope, and it's significantly more powerful than the Hubble telescope that you heard Laura Ingraham reference in that clip. But that's not the real story here, is it? Nor is the AI speech Biden was delivering. It's the sheer ignorance, the confident ignorance of Fox News host Laura Ingraham. Laura Ingraham, who had never heard of the James Webb Space Telescope, didn't bother to do a modicum of research before presenting that segment, couldn't even do a Google search to find out if such a telescope did exist, or if Biden actually misspoke. She couldn't even be bothered to ask somebody who worked for her to do that cursory Google search. So let's take this opportunity to talk about just a few of the awful things Laura Ingraham, aka Fascist Barbie, has said and done with the platform she has at Fox News. Let's start with last month, when Laura Ingraham compared the Hamas attack on Israel to the prosecution of Donald Trump.
This is a moment for the United States to come together, to grieve with those who are mourning. Let's be real clear. There is no place for hate in America.
Okay, well, if he's really against hate, then he should call a prosecutorial ceasefire against his political adversaries, like the former president, and direct his DOJ and DHS to stop making conservative Americans feel like they're the enemy, or like they're the violent extremists out there.
Comparing the prosecution of Donald Trump for crimes he did commit to a terrorist attack where 1,400 people were murdered, or more broadly now, the war in which the Israeli government has murdered 10,000 innocent Palestinian civilians, is grotesque to say the very least. A word I find myself using quite frequently when discussing Laura Ingraham. Another thing Laura Ingraham said in that clip is that the prosecution of Donald Trump is going to make right-wingers feel like they're considered criminals. Well, to that, Laura, I would say that the right-wingers who participated on January 6th were criminals. The right-wingers who were there chanting "Hang Mike Pence," who broke through windows to crawl into the Capitol. The right-wingers who love to call themselves law and order conservatives, who love to back the blue, who were there that day and punched police officers in the face. Yeah, they're criminals. And no matter what conspiracy theory Laura Ingraham happens to be peddling on any given day, January 6th was actually orchestrated by the deep state. January 6th wasn't actually conservatives. No, it was Antifa. Doesn't matter because we know that the people who were there that day were supporters of Donald Trump. In fact, many of them have gone to jail for their participation in it, some of whom will be in jail for a very long time. And if we're going to talk more broadly about political violence, we need to acknowledge that it is far more prevalent on the right wing of politics than it is the left wing. The people at the Unite the Right rally chanting "The Jews will not replace us" were right-wingers. It says so in the name. The person who drove his car into the crowd and murdered a woman was a right-winger. The man who wrote slurs on his AR-15 and went into a grocery store in a predominantly black neighborhood and specifically targeted black people in that store was a right-winger. And if you look into the political ideologies of the individuals who have carried out mass shootings at churches, at mosques, at synagogues, you'll find some connection to the right-wing ideology in almost every case. And that's not to say all right-wingers are violent criminals. Far from it. But if we're talking about political violence like Laura Ingraham was in that case, she needs to look squarely at her side of the aisle. And if right-wingers feel like Trump being prosecuted is a direct attack against them or framing them as criminals, it's because that's what Laura Ingraham tells them to believe. Take a look.
Trump is the most egregious example of the politicization of our prosecutorial system on the state and federal level. Go after your political opponents. But as we were talking about earlier, this is happening in colleges and universities, high schools, junior high schools, in the workplace, in the military, where people who see themselves as traditionalist or maybe Christian or maybe they're Muslim, but they're more traditionalist in their outlook, they feel like they're targets. Like they can't speak, they probably won't get a promotion, and everyone's walking on eggshells because, heaven forbid, the establishment bears down on them and decides to take them out, take them off the playing field or out of the workplace or out of the military.
Laura Ingraham is unironically saying the exact same thing that Trump says, they're not after me, they're after you. I'm just in the way. Which is patently absurd for a myriad of reasons because, one, they're not after me. I didn't attempt to steal an election. I didn't hold on to classified documents and put up a fight with the National Archives when they asked for them back. I wasn't keeping tactical invasion plans of Iran in an unlocked bathroom in my basement. And I certainly wasn't showing them off to Kid Rock. And neither were you. Which is what makes this argument so silly. And it's buttressed by the fact that Laura Ingraham doesn't offer a single example. She can't even provide anecdotal evidence of this happening. Just a very ominous and scary, it might happen in the workplace, at high school, in middle school, in elementary school, at preschool, in the womb. But I have to laugh at the idea that someone might be too conservative for the United States military. Give me a break, Laura Ingraham. But what should actually scare you is the fact that there is a large population in the United States that gets their news from Laura Ingraham, that sits down every night and watches her show and is dumber and worse off for it. But hey, at least all those people and Laura Ingraham now know that the James Bell Space Telescope exists.